Hello Autistics, I am AUTISTICMAXX. Today, just like you saw in the title, I'm gonna talk about Pyro's most underrated weapon. Dragon's Fury is actually OP. But before we start the video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel and write your options in the comments. Anyway, let's start. Now, as you all know, the Dragon's Fury was added in Tf2's last major update, the Jungle Inferno. I'm still hopeful a new update will come. And ever since the day it was released, it hasn't gotten much attention. There are several reasons for this. The first and most important reason is that unlike Pyro's other primary weapons, this weapon requires you to aim and shoot properly, and most Pyro players don't prefer playing Pyro that way. Another reason is that its air-based ability is weaker compared to Pyro's other weapons. Also, in my personal opinion, this weapon unfortunately doesn't combo very well with many other Pyro weapons. So, does that make the weapon completely trash? Of course not. Let me explain. This weapon deals 300% damage to burning enemies. On top of that, follows up attacks against the target you hit will fire 50% faster, which allows you to quickly eliminate most classes in the game. Let's calculate it simply. The base damage against a non-burning enemy is around 25. Depending on distance scaling, it can go up to 30 at point blank range. This should ignite the enemy. If the enemy is already burning, the weapon deals 300% damage. This means it deals 75 damage per hit. At close range with distance scaling, it can deal around 84 to 19 damage. Critical hit deals fixed at 225 damage. Min crits deal around 100 to 121 damage depending on range. Also, when the fireball hits the target, the enemy contains burning for 3.5 seconds. During this time, the enemy takes 4 damage every half second per tick. In total, it deals about 20 afterburn damage, even though the afterburn duration is much shorter compared to normal flamethrowers. The weapon's DPS is so high that this can be ignored. Now, based on this information, Dragon's Fury can very easily eliminate almost every class in the game except Heavy, because after hitting the enemy once, following shot fire rapidly, allowing you to deal around 170 or 200 damage in very short time. Also, this damage may vary depending on distance. Of course, the only thing you need to do exchange for such a powerful weapon is aim tracking. The fact that this weapon requires some aiming skill to use effectively keeps many Pyro players away from it, because Pyro players prefer playing a trash weapon like the Phlog instead of. Now, let's talk about one of this weapon's downsides. It's air blast. Using the air blast effectively on this weapon seriously requires the reflexes of a skilled Sekiro player, because both the range is short and the cooldown 1.3 seconds. In other words, you can't reflect multiple rockets in a row like you can with a normal flamethrower, and you have to put in much more effort compared to a standard flamethrower. But if you look at it from another perspective, at least this weapon has an air blast ability. Unlike a trash weapon like the Phlog, you can at least defend yourself properly. I've done it a few times myself. It's not impossible, just harder compared to other flamethrowers. So, how well does this weapon work with secondary and melee weapons? Let me explain again. Well, it's not the best, but at least good. Also totally better than the Phlog. It's good for you can ignite the enemies such as the detonator or shortcut or like that weapon. However, it can't really be said to work well with shotgun type weapons, because for a class whose damage mostly comes from fire, bullets become rather useless. As for melee weapons, instead of using something like extinguisher, you should choose something like power jack, focusing more on escaping or helping teammates rather than pure aggression. The conclusion: this weapon is actually very powerful, but as I said, unlike garbage like the Phlog, this weapon requires some skill. And also this weapon is very underrated when comparing to other weapons in the entire game. So yes, this weapon is really OP. Anyway guys, that's all from me for today. See you in the next video. The AUTISTICMAXX out. Have a nice day.